Hello, hello, everyone. Hope you're doing very, very well on this fine Thursday night. It is about 9:30 p.m. as I'm recording this, and it is episode number 36 of Azren's, no, 37, sorry, 37 of Azren's Journal. For those of you who have not seen this segment on my YouTube channel before, it's pretty straightforward. This is the segment where I share my personal language learning journey. And of course, a segment where I give you guys a whole bunch of different language learning tips. So we'll have three separate portions of this video. Portion one is going to be my personal life updates. Portion two is language learning updates. And then portion three is going to be some language learning tips. So personal life, let's start with, actually, no, we're not going to start with personal life. I want to start with the language learning updates today, and then we'll go to personal life. So language learning updates in my world, September is right around the corner. And with September coming up, that means my Mandarin classes are going to start up again. For those of you who don't know, I am currently doing a second degree at the University of Calgary. I'm doing a major in East Asian language studies with a concentration in Mandarin. This is an after-degree program. So basically what that means is I'm able to get a second bachelor's degree within 2 years instead of doing it in 4 years. It's kind of like a buy one, get one half off kind of deal, because I already have one degree already in French and Spanish from the University of Calgary. So they allow me to come back and do a second degree for basically half the time. I just have to take the major requirements, AKA the program requirements, but I don't have to take any of the optional classes or any of the electives. So basically in about 5-6 weeks time, I'm going to be back at Mandarin. Personally, I've been out of touch with Mandarin ever since I got back from Taiwan. If you have followed along with some of these Azren's journals, you probably noticed that I haven't really shared many of my own personal language learning updates. I haven't really talked about a whole lot language learning wise. And that's just because I haven't been doing a whole lot for my own personal language learning. However, this is a really important point that I want to drive home for language learners. As a language learner, it is really important to know yourself. It is incredibly important for you to know yourself. You have to know what your personal language learning style and learning preferences are, because there are different types of things that are going to work for different types of people. So a great example is myself. I know that I can be competitive. I know that I am someone who is driven by competitiveness. And because of that, I choose to take language classes. When I take language classes, I get competitive with the other people in the class. I want to be keeping up with others. I want to be in the top percentile of that class. I also know I'm motivated by external factors. I know that I don't want to be at the bottom of the class. I know that when I'm taking a class, there's external accountability that's going to force me to study and force me to be proactive with the language. So I take classes. And I'm also being self-aware. And I know because my classes are coming up in September, I cannot go into that class completely out of touch with Mandarin. For anyone who's taken language classes before, especially in an academic setting, like in university or high school or junior high, elementary, you can probably relate to this. One thing that will often happen in these kinds of language classes is when you come back to school after a break, because right now university students are all on a spring/summer break right now in Canada, or at least in Calgary, in my university. And so when we get back to school, most people, 99% of people, are completely out of touch, and they're like, "Oh my God, I haven't studied Mandarin in a long time. Like, oh man, I've forgotten everything. Characters. Oh my goodness." I don't want to be that person. I really don't. And because of that, in August, I'm going to be taking some Mandarin lessons to brush up on the different things that I've needed to the things that I've learned and the things that I know in Mandarin. I think as well, tied into self-awareness, but transitioning over a little bit, I'm someone who tends to spend a lot of money on my language learning. I spend a lot of money. So I was looking at something. I spent in 17, I believe it was, so 2 years ago, I spent about approximately I think it was $1,500 on Mandarin. That's a lot of money, like $1,500, maybe a little more actually. I forget the exact number now. That's a lot. That's a lot of money thrown into Mandarin. I had taken some intensive lessons that year. I hadn't traveled, or maybe I did. No, I hadn't. I didn't travel. But I'd taken some intensive lessons here in Calgary. For the longtime followers, you'll remember I was doing some intensive lessons online. And yeah, so I'd spent a good chunk of change on my Mandarin. So I think one thing that's important to look at is when you see someone who is, really, really fluent in a lot of languages, whether it's 4 languages, 2 languages, heck, even if they're really strong in one, to become strong, really fluent, like above average fluency, like near native, like to become really strong, you have to do things that most people are not doing. Because if you think about it, if you think about the majority, right? You think about the majority of people who jump into learning a language, the majority do not achieve, let's say, near native level fluency. It's actually the minority of people who end up achieving near native like fluency. That's just the reality of how it is. And you look at every single person who enters learning a foreign language. It's not the majority who achieve an extremely high level of fluency. Therefore, if you are someone who is wanting to achieve extremely high level of fluency, you have to take action steps that other people are generally not taking. You have to do things that other people aren't doing if you want to get results that other people typically don't get. Ooh, that's a good quote. That's a really good quote. I feel like that's a quotable moment right there. You have to do stuff that other people, if you want to achieve a level of fluency that most people do not achieve, you are going to have to take steps that most language learners are not taking, right? You have to, that's just the reality. So in my case, that looks like traveling abroad. That looks like spending more money than the average person does. That looks like actually building my work around languages. So most of my time is spent on language learning related things. That's built on teaching languages. I am way more heavily, my life is more heavily invested in language learning than the average person. So that's something you have to think about, is think about how ambitious are your goals. And then if the more ambitious your language, whatever your target is with your language you're trying to learn, or the languages you're trying to learn, the more ambitious your actual action steps have to look like. The bigger your action steps, the more you have to do that doesn't just look like simply taking a class a week or studying every now and then, etc., etc. So that's my personal language learning update for you guys. A couple of life updates just in my world, not necessarily related to language learning, would be, so work-wise, I'm heavily focused nowadays on 3 specific aspects. So sales, branding, and marketing. Those are 3 pillars that I'm thinking a lot about, because the past few months I've not necessarily been, I have not focused enough on those 3 things as I would have liked. I've been focused on other elements of my work, which are important as well, but sales, branding, and marketing are really important, and they deserve more attention than what I have been giving it lately. So I've actually done a bit of a switch in my mind mentally and action-wise, where for at least for the time being, those things come first. Those things are the priority. In the past, everything kind of had an equal priority. I didn't think that sales, branding, marketing were more important than other aspects of my work. That's not how I was treating it. But nowadays, I've been treating it that in a way where those are going to be a little bit more important. So it just shifts my action steps, right? It makes me focus on things I wasn't focusing on before. A couple of examples of things I'm working on in my business would be, a lot of stuff actually. A little thing like literally for the longest time on my website, there was, how do you explain this? Like when you open a website, let's just say this. I had a weird logo that was not my logo. It was just not my logo, very clearly displayed on my website. I've not fixed it for ages. That is a poor branding decision. Or things like knowing that there are errors on my website of stuff that just has to be changed and just never getting around to fixing it. Or things like knowing I need to be putting out way more ads to be getting students and generating money, and knowing that there's changes I have to make to my ads that would allow them to convert better and get more money for me, but not putting the effort into that and the time into that. Knowing that I'm not doing enough with experimenting with different apps and different ways to structure things for myself, just basically basically innovating, I suppose you could say, in my business, knowing there's certain innovations I'm missing out on and not doing them. So I've just been like way more focused on the branding, sales, marketing, those three particular things, because I believe it to be important and I'm focusing heavily on them. It's going to help me a lot for the rest of this year, the second half of 2019. And I think it's going to allow me to build some foundations for 2020, 2021, and allow me to succeed even more. You're going to see some changes. We'll talk about them in the weeks and months to come, but I'm really, really excited. So those are some personal updates. One more language learning update, because I just remembered I haven't talked about it. We haven't talked about Gujarati in a long time. So Gujarati is a language that I'm learning. It is my mother tongue, and I speak it well enough. But I was more focused on it and putting an active effort towards it. It's definitely taken a back seat in recent, let's call it, most of this year, most of 2019. It's taken, a good chunk of 2019. It's taken a back seat, but it's going to get a little bit more attention, at least in the month to come, because in August, I'm going to be attending Langfest. Langfest is a language learning conference and festival that takes place in Montreal, Canada, on the weekend of August 23rd, I believe, to the 25th or 6th, something like that. I'm giving a presentation, or rather, I'm doing a workshop, a beginner's workshop for Gujarati learners. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube and everything. I do not want to look like an idiot, so I'm going to be brushing up on Gujarati before that trip actually comes up, so that I can be as prepared as possible. So that is something that's going to be coming up. It ties into the self-awareness that we talked about. I need external accountability to practice languages and put time into it. Therefore, this Montreal Langfest trip is going to serve as some external accountability and force me, quote unquote, and encourage me to actually study the language. So, all right, let's talk about the final thing of this language learning video here, Azren's Journal, which has to do with the current title of the video, which actually might change now that I'm thinking about it, but it's the current title. So people who are watching live, I see a few of you there. What's up? It is related to the current title, which is an effective teaching and language learning strategy that has been working really well for me that I want to share. So when you look at my world of my work in languages, I teach languages. I work for myself. I'm self-employed. So I work with people primarily in a classroom or small group, or private setting, like a private tutoring kind of setting. One of those three, either classroom education, small group education, like 2-3 people, or private. So one person, one-on-one. In my world, when you look at the standard way of structuring classes and the standard way of structuring things, most people will do it like this. They will have, let's call it 1 to 2 on average classes per week with their students. Whether it is in a large group setting, in a private setting, in a small group setting, usually it's 1 to 2 classes a week, maybe 1 to 2 hours per class, and then people pay for that. That is how you earn your income. Now, I want to actually question, I want to challenge that system. I want to challenge that. And I want to propose a better system, a system that I actually believe is more effective and has been. I've been testing it now for 2019. It's been a 2019 project and it's been working well. and I'm feeling more and more confident in it. The system is the following. Let's say I've got a group. Let's say it's a small group of 3 people. All right. I have a 3-person class. They paid me. We're running a class. The class should be structured as this. Once a week, we have a in-person class. This is a standard class, right? Think about what a classroom would look like. Think of a very good classroom experience. This is going to be one of those experiences. We're going to learn grammar. We're going to practice talking. We're going to learn vocabulary. I'm going to answer their questions. Maybe we do some reading. Maybe we play a game. Depends on the class. Now, after that class, things are going to change a little bit. We're going to do something different. Every single day for at least 4 days of the week. Okay, so let's say Monday we have the in-person class. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, these people, each student in that class is going to send me, I'm going to send them some homework to do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This homework needs to be assigned 1 day at a time. So if we lay out a timeline, Monday's a class, Monday night, I send you a homework. That homework assignment will probably take you about 15 minutes to complete. 15-ish, let's say 10 minutes to 20 minutes. You are going to send that back to me by the end of the day, Tuesday. I'm going to correct that. I'm going to send it back to you with feedback, corrections, things to think about, things to work on. Based on the mistakes you made, I'm going to send you further homework on Wednesday. Wednesday, you're going to take your 10 to 20 minutes. You're going to do the assignment I gave you, rinse and repeat. I'm going to correct it, give you feedback, and give you another homework for Thursday, based on the mistakes that you made every single day. So what it does is it forces people to use the language on a day-to-day basis. The homework, I will give homework that is speaking-based, listening-based, reading-based, and writing-based. It depends on what the goals are for the student and what they're trying to work on. So it really depends. But the point is I'm making you use the language on a daily basis for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, and I'm giving you feedback. You're getting feedback every day, and you're using the language every single day, 5 days of the week. Once a week with me in person, 4 days a week we're doing homework where you are using that language every single day. It forces consistency. It keeps you accountable. It's just a better system. It's an excellent system. In my experience, it leads to much better results than what a standard classroom schedule or standard teaching schedule or standard tutoring would look like. Especially when you look at, for example, in a classroom setting, you'll often correct the homework in the next class, which is fine. I think there's an argument to be made about that being a waste of class time. I think there's an argument to be made where if you gave individual feedback between the classes, right, based on the homework was due before the class. When you get to the class, you can use your class time way more effectively. You've made progress between the classes. And because students are using the Spanish every single day, 4 days a week or 5 days a week, they're going to be progressing way faster too. You're not going to be wasting time on a student thinking, oh man, I haven't touched the language in 4 days. Ooh, I got to warm up to the language. Absolutely not. You're not wasting any time. You're getting right into it. Similar random little thing we'll finish this video on. Random little thing we'll finish. Is if you are taking, whether you're taking classes or however you are learning, before you start your lesson, before you start your class, before you start the next chapter in your book, before you start the next part of your audio program, before you do whatever you're doing, spend 15 minutes preparing your brain by reviewing your notes from last time, reviewing things and warming your brain up. It's going to make your study session way more effective. All right, everyone, thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. It's been a fun one. I feel like this is a really valuable one of the more actionable and practical videos I've made in a while. So I hope you guys like it. I'd appreciate some likes and comments if you did. And we will talk next time. Bye for now. Say bye to my sister, by the way, too. She's sitting there, right there. All right, guys. See you. Bye.